This video ends when I break Benfica's Champions League curse. After winning the club's second European Cup in a row in 1962, their manager Béla Guttmann went to the Benfica board asking for a pay rise. The club refused, and Guttmann was so furious that he walked out, with the legend claiming that he uttered, "Not in 100 years will Benfica be European champions." And since then, Benfica have played in 5 European Cup finals, losing them all. And today I will break that curse by bringing a Champions League back to Benfica. If you play Football Manager, then you know that Benfica is a wonder kid factory, and I already have 2 of the best in game, with defender Antonio Silva and midfielder João Neves. And my main task in this save will be keeping hold of them, because I feel it will be quite difficult to replace them. However, we will be without players like Goncalo Ramos, who will be joining PSG, and Andreas Schjelderup, who is back on loan at FC Nordsjælland for the season, but he will be back for us next year. To fill that hole at striker, we have Brazilian Arthur Cabral coming in from Fiorentina, but I do have to admit he isn't the kind of striker that I like. We need a good tactic for this video, so I'll be using GYR's tiki-taka tactic, as I want to bring a level of total football to this Benfica side. This is how it looks in game with the current best 11, and I'll be giving as much game time to Silva and Neves as possible. There's lots to play for in Portugal, as we have 4 domestic competitions, including the league, and we will be in the Champions League from season number 1. The board is expecting a league title this season, however Porto are favourites to win the trophy. We kicked off the season with the Portuguese Super Cup, where this year we would take on Porto. The game was pretty dull until it got to extra time, when Nico turned the ball into his own net from a Schjelderup cross. Minutes later, we extended the lead through João Mario before Porto managed to put one in the right goal through Wendell, but it was too little too late, and we lifted our first trophy of the save. As I said in the intro, there's lots to play for in Portugal, and up next was the League Cup, where we progressed to the final, where we would take on Sporting. It was yet another tight game in the final, but Di Maria's lovely curled effort was enough to settle the game and see us lift trophy number 2. We had an opportunity to complete the clean sweep of domestic cups at the end of the season, having progressed through to the final of the Portuguese Cup, where we would take on Braga. João Mario opened the scoring from the spot before Nicolas Otamendi added a second, heading home from a corner. Braga did pull a goal back, but it wasn't enough to stop us lifting yet another trophy. In the league, we opened our campaign with a defeat, but quickly righted the ship, going on a 10-game winning run to kickstart our season. We continue to be exceptional in the league, on our way to securing a 39th league title. But we're here to break the Benfica Champions League curse, and this season our performance in that competition was disappointing to say the least. We were drawn in Group A alongside Lens, AC Milan and Manchester United, but after losing our opening 3 games, we finished bottom of the group and even failed to drop down into the Europa League. So after season 1, you can see we're exceptional domestically, but still have plenty of work to do on the continental stage. This summer we will have a transfer budget just shy of 17 million to spend, but we do have over £400,000 a week in our wage budget, as some big name, high wage players will be leaving the club. This summer saw the pre-arranged transfer of Goncalo Ramos to PSG go through, so we received £56 million from that, but we also added 60 million of our own through additional player sales. Key players who left the team were Arthur Cabral, who left for Saudi Arabia for £25 million after just 1 season with the club. Centre-back João Victor left for now Premier League Leicester City for £17.5 million, and Thiago Dantas left for Bayer Leverkusen for £11.25 million. So I'm sure you think I went overboard and signed lots of players for really expensive fees. Well, no, I didn't, because that's not really the Benfica way. We did spend 30 million bringing in 3 players I really think can make a difference for this team. A bulk of that transfer fee went on Bayern Munich youngster Joshua Zirkzee, who I think can play the role of a complete forward due to his high attributes in passing and teamwork. We did also sign another striker for competition, as Saldanha arrived from Partizan in Serbia for just £3 million. And finally, we picked up a La Masia graduate from Barcelona's youth ranks, as we signed Alex Valley for £2.5 million. Going into the season, this is how our best 11 looks, as we managed to fight off interest in both Antonio Silva and João Neves. Competition-wise, we will have the same 5 competitions as last season, but the Champions League will be in the new format and we will enter in the league phase. As always, the first trophy on offer was the Super Cup, where this year we would take on Braga, who fought valiantly but could not break our domestic dominance, with us winning the game 3-1 to lift the trophy. Braga almost proved to be a thorn in our side, as we narrowly managed to beat them on penalties in the semi-final on the way to another League Cup final. Here we take on Sporting, who really lost their discipline, receiving 2 red cards in the game, making it a routine 3-0 win for us against 9 men to win the trophy for a second season in a row. Later in the season, we renew that rivalry against Sporting, as we would both make it to the final of the Portuguese Cup. This time they kept all 11 men on the pitch, but we still managed to battle back from a goal down to win the game 2-1 and lift our 7th trophy of this save already. In the Liga Portugal, we were unbelievably good, going on an unbeaten run that spanned 28 games through to our only loss of the season when we took on Porto. We won the title with an impressive 91 points, which ties the 21-22 Porto team's record for most points in a season. This would be a record I would love to break in this save. In the Champions League this season, we were much better. In the league phase, we won 5 of our 8 games to finish on 15 points and qualify for the knockout stages. We'd have to participate in the playoff round, where we would come up against Atletico Madrid. The first leg was at the Metropolitano, where we suffered a narrow 1-0 defeat thanks to Alvaro Morata's neat finish. Back in Portugal, we were much more convincing, showing our class to bag 3 first-half goals and open up a lead in the tie that finished 4-2 on aggregate. This set up a huge all-Portuguese tie in the round of 16, as we would take on Porto, and this time we would be at home first. Much like the game against Atleti, we dominated the home game, with youngster João Rigo scoring twice in a real breakout match for him in this save. We won the first leg 4-1 to take a 3-goal lead to Porto, and luckily that we did, as Porto actually won the second leg 2-0, but this wasn't enough to prevent us moving into the quarter-finals with a 4-3 aggregate win. This is where we took on Napoli, but our superb home record was put to the test by the Italian side, as the game finished in a 3-3 draw, but we scored twice in injury time to save our blushes. This would need a monumental performance on the road, and that is exactly what we got. Andrea Schelderup put us in front on the night and on the tie with his nice finish, but Abel Ruiz was able to pull Napoli level minutes later. The game looked like it was destined for extra time until summer signing Joshua Zirkzee showed great composure to win it for us in the 95th minute. It would be PSG up next in the semis, and we will be at home first yet again. This game was fantastic and really showed how far we've come this season to be competing with teams like this on this stage. We even opened up a 3-1 lead, only to see PSG pull level with late goals from Xavi Simons and former Porto man Vitinha. I knew this would be a tough game to win in Paris, and we tried our hardest, but fell off towards the end of the game to see PSG bag 2 late goals through Skriniar and Randall Kolo Muani. This season we proved that we are clearly the best team in Portugal and made a vast improvement in the Champions League. But several of my key players are wanted by Europe's elite, so I feel this is going to be a bit of a tricky summer. We have £74 million of our own money in the transfer budget, but I get a feeling I'll be adding to that, so let's see what we can do. I have to say the biggest thing from this summer is that all of my wonder kids are still at the club. Real Madrid came in looking for João Neves and he decided to stay, and Arsenal wanted Antonio Silva, but they're both still at the club. Yes, we still have a little bit of hope. We did move 2 players on for money, as Mortal left the club for RB Leipzig for 15 million, and Thomas Araujo also departed for Germany, joining Dortmund for 8.75 million. Again, on the incoming side of things, we didn't go crazy, as I think we only needed a few pieces. We spent a bulk of our money on another youngster from Barcelona, signing Pau Cubarsí for a 20.5 million. I think we will be starting him this season because he's well-rounded, but it's time for games, and I think he can turn into a great partner for Antonio Silva. We also picked up young French defender Bastien Mapoyu, who can be a good young depth option whilst having that high potential. And finally, we cracked out the wonderkid filter to sign Jean Berkel from Red Bull Salzburg, but he's only 16 and isn't ready for first-team football just yet, so he's gone back to Austria on loan. Going into the season, I'll be pinning these 3 players into their positions, as Rafael Luiz has been promoted through the ranks internally and will be starting as our defensive midfielder this season. We've got lots on our plate again this year, but I think we can have a real shot at the Champions League. This season we'd faced Sporting in the Super Cup and we continued our impressive record against our city rivals, running out 3-1 winners on the day with David Neres running the show with a goal and an assist. We continued our stranglehold on the League Cup as well, but in less convincing fashion as we managed to squeak past Porto in the semis on penalties before needing spot kicks to beat Sporting in the final. Our reserve keeper came up clutch in that final, saving 3 of Sporting's penalties to see us win the trophy for a 3rd time in a row. It seemed like the penalty gods would be in our favour this season after progressing to the final of the Portuguese Cup, this time to face Porto. We shared a 3-3 draw on the day, needing penalties to decide things yet again. Both teams were scoring from the spot, including our goalkeeper Anatoly Trubin, who after scoring his penalty, stepped up to deny Erakovic from Porto to see us lift yet another trophy. It would also be Porto that pushed us all the way in the league as well. We were very impressive yet again in the league, picking up another 91-point season, but Porto managed to achieve the same points total, with us edging them out on head-to-head record. That was a close one. And in the Champions League, we were impressive in the league phase, picking up 16 points from our 8 games to sneak into the top 8 and qualify automatically for the round of 16. For the 2nd season in a row, it would be an all-Portuguese affair in the round of 16 as we would face Porto. This year, we were on the road first and shared the spoils with a 1-1 draw before narrowly edging the game at home, with David Neres sending us onwards towards the quarter-finals. Here, we'd face a huge test as we take on Jurgen Klopp and Liverpool. Our impressive home record stood strong here and we picked up a huge result. Darwin Núñez scored on his return to Lisbon, but goals from João Mario, Andreas Schelderup and Goncalo Moreira saw us take a 2-goal lead to Anfield. In the 2nd leg, the boys put in a heroic performance, restricting Liverpool to just a single goal, which saw us knock out the 6-time champions and move into the semi-finals for a 2nd season in a row. This year, we would take on AC Milan at this stage, and I was pretty confident in progressing. Joshua Zirkzee opened the scoring in Milan, only for Charles de Ketelaere to pull the Italian side level. But back in Lisbon, we would take things up a gear. Zirkzee scored again in a 2-0 win on the night, and Anatoly Trubin put in a man-of-the-match performance. So we would make our first Champions League final of the save and have the first time to break the curse. And who else should we face in this final, other than the team that knocked us out last season, PSG? We took to the field with the words of Béla Guttmann ringing in our ears, knowing that we could be the team to make history. Sadly for us, Randall Kolo Muani opened the scoring on the hour mark, and despite seeing Nicolo Zaniolo receive his marching orders, we couldn't score a goal of our own, and PSG won back-to-back Champions League titles. And for us, the curse and this video continues. We were so damn close this season, but I'm hoping these performances enable us to keep hold of our big hitters. We have a ludicrous 158 million in our transfer budget, thanks to the sell of Orkan Kokcu, who joined Real Madrid for a whopping £55 million earlier on in the season. So let's see what I can do, because I don't want to go spending crazy. This summer we only had one major outgoing, as David Jurasek left the club for Al Ettifaq for an initial 18 million, but I wanted to be clever with our incoming signings. The Wonder Kid Finder filter returned again because I exclusively signed just new gens. First up was Thomas Halbrich from Mainz in Germany, as we met his active relegation release clause of 15.5 million. We then spent £32 million to activate the release clause of this man, Simon ter Hocht from FC Emmen in the Netherlands, but he's slightly away from being first team ready, so he's back at his former club on loan this season. Sometimes you have to buy these new gens in advance, even if they're not ready, just so you don't get priced out of buying them. We also added Jan Schwartz from Slavia Prague for 1.5 million, Johan Goldart from Sochaux for 1.9 million, and Iveka Petrit from Lokomotiva for 1.5 million. Going into the season, Halbrich comes in to take up our right back spot, and we will also be pinning in Goncalo Moreira on the right hand side, as we have yet another academy product ready to make the step up to the first team. We do have one of the youngest teams in the league, but I'm confident it could be another remarkable season for us. This season we faced Porto in the Super Cup and they pushed us all the way into extra time and probably deserved the win, but David Neres scored in the 97th minute to see us win the season opener. However, this season was the first season in this save that we wouldn't compete in the final of every single domestic competition. In the League Cup we were drawn in Group C, and even though we went unbeaten in our 2 games, we failed to qualify on goal difference, which might actually help us later on in the season by playing less games. However, in the Portuguese Cup we progressed through to the final, only conceding 1 goal in 6 games before facing Sporting in that final. This game was close on the scoreline, but not on the stats, as we battered Sporting all game long before Alex Valley popped up in the 88th minute with the only goal of the game to see us lift the club's 30th Portuguese Cup. We continued to dominate in the league, only conceding 17 goals in our 34 games this season to win another league title, beating Porto to it by 3 points this season. But after last season's disappointment, we are all here for the Champions League. We were poor in the league phase, to be honest, only getting 11 points from our 8 games, suffering 3 defeats. Those results saw us finish 20th in the table and have to face a playoff round fixture. The draw handed us German opposition as we'd face RB Leipzig and we would be at home first. Wonder kid Benjamin Sesko opened the scoring for the visitors before Andreas Schelderup pulled us level. I thought that Joshua Zirkzee had won the game for us in the 92nd minute, but Sesko scored just 60 seconds later to square the game with a tough ask coming up in Germany. On the road, the game went to extra time where academy product João Rigo popped up with a goal in the 107th minute to send us through to the round of 16. And here we faced our old foes and back-to-back champions, PSG. In the home leg, another academy product, Goncalo Moreira scored the only goal of the game to see us take a slender lead to Paris. But even with all the talent in the world, we kept PSG quiet in the second leg, with the game finishing 0-0 to advance into the quarter-finals. Here we'd face Liverpool for a second season in a row, and we get off to a flyer in the first leg at home, with Saldenha scoring inside the first 5 minutes. Moreira added a second before half-time, but Liverpool pegged a goal back through Dominic Szoboszlai just before full-time. At Anfield, Liverpool battered us, but we scored the only goal of the game as Saldenha scored on the 10-minute mark. Mo Salah even saw his 85th minute penalty saved by Anatoly Trubin, who's turned into one hell of a keeper in this save. It was English opposition in the semi-finals as well, as we'd have to beat Manchester City if we wanted to make our second Champions League final in a row. We were at home in the first leg and we left it late, but finally made the breakthrough in the 71st minute through Schelderup before David Neres added a second for good measure in the 89th minute. At the Etihad, City did respond with a goal through Yeremy Pino, but that was the only goal of the game, which saw us progress to the Champions League final with a 2-1 aggregate win. This set up a final tie against Barcelona, with last season's defeat and the curse lingering over us yet again. Andreas Schelderup opened the scoring from the spot after Saldenha was fouled inside the penalty area. Barcelona did clap back through fullback Alejandro Balde on the stroke of half-time, but this was our year, as Rafael Luis scored the decisive goal of the game in the second half to see us win the Champions League and finally break the curse. This Benfica team is full of wonder kids. There's millions of pounds in the bank, and you can get this save if you wanted to carry it on from this point. The save files are over on my Patreon right now, and if you do like these challenges, the one club challenges, check out this video. For every game that I win in Football Manager, I steal an opposition player. It's a very fun video. I hope you guys enjoy it.